So now we'll pick it up again with managing and leading project teams. We want to support team performance. And so that becomes critical to what we do. Project managers can take steps to develop and maintain high levels of engagement, right? By engaging in really 5 key behaviors that are going to enable, inspire, motivate, and empower the team members to take pride in their work, right? We want to be a role model. We want to be engaged leaders who inspire followers to also be engaged. We want to provide social and structural resources for the team that's needed to complete their work. We want to provide challenging assignments to the team. One of the things I always ask my technical team members when I look, and the project managers too, is what do they want to work on for the coming up projects in the new year, right? And I let them, for the most part, pick things that interest them. And I want to allow the team to share the process of designing the work and plans to achieve their goals, right? This sort of collaboration is always beneficial. And I want to remove, that's my primary role, is to remove obstacles that get in their way to success. Maybe it's an unclear requirement from a stakeholder. Maybe it's a lack of support from the organization. My role is to make these obstacles go away, right? So I can help increase their performance. Now what's going to happen is we build a project and a team to try and avoid conflict. One of the ways to do that is to clarify roles and responsibilities. But conflict is going to happen anyhow, right? We talked about it in terms of the Tuckman's stages of team development: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning, right? And so it's going to happen probably, so we want to help make it an opportunity. Now, there can be civilized disagreement, right? This is a disagreement without avoiding, that we're smoothing over or suppressing the conflict, right? And it may use team contracts to help solve them. So we've talked about, or one thing I like to use is a team charter. Now that's separate from the project charter, which is all about the scope, schedule, cost at a high level, driving success in the project. This is a team charter where we all agree on how we're going to handle conflict, how we're going to talk to each other. For example, maybe step 1 is handled at the lowest level first, right? Consensus is another approach, right? A proposal acceptable enough that everybody can support it, right? No matter who opposes, no member is really ever going to oppose it, but it's not really unanimous either, right? So it's not a majority vote. Those are kind of some of the things that can happen. Now, a state where everyone is totally satisfied is going to require a lot of time investment and constant participation by the team, and frankly, a lot of great communication skills that we've been talking about: listening, conflict resolution, and facilitating discussion, right? We want to be creative thinkers, think outside the box, and emotional IQ plays a role here. This open-mindedness, right? That's the ability to think critically is being open-minded. Ideas should be heard and understood, right? And so to resolve internal team conflict, we want to, remove masks and identify the real problem that's going on. Sometimes we give up a must-win, always. We give up a must-win attitude for, I want win-win. I want to solve the real root issue here. And sometimes that's done by developing scenarios or possible solutions, courses of action, for example, and then let people discuss those. You'll evaluate them together, communicate, and everybody has buy-in to the solution is the goal. So consensus and civilized disagreements, right? The problem is, for example, a team member makes a comment or asks a question that is off the subject, right? Well, there are suggested approaches, right? I can either apologize to the group. Well, I guess I haven't made the objective clear. Let me state it again. I don't really like that approach. I can tactfully say, how does your comment tie in with the subject we're discussing, right? That's another option. I might sidestep the question and say, that's an interesting comment, but it's on a subject that's a bit different. I would wonder if you could see me after the meeting and we could discuss it further, right? Or for example, here's a problem. A side conversation takes place during two participants, right? So what are we going to do about that? Well, I could pause for a few seconds without calling particular attention to them, and the silence generally will cut short the conversation. I might take a short break, or I might ask the participants directly if they'd like to share their ideas with the group in a friendly way. Another problem might be the team participants are distracted, right? And there are some ways to prevent it suggested. How would you handle it? Again, it's a good idea to pause on these slides and to think about what other ways could we use to handle these issues. Another problem might be two or more participants are arguing with each other. Well, I might say it's not who is right, but what is right that is different, right? Remember, doing projects and programs is about doing the work the right way. A portfolio is doing the right projects, right? But project management is about doing the work the right way. Same with program management. So these might be some questions you can ask. How would you handle them? Another problem that you might consider is one or two participants dominate the meeting, right? We want to avoid that. And that was one of the reasons we did the Myers-Briggs MBTI assessment, not just so that we know ourselves and our preferences, but we'll realize the preferences of some people that want to dominate, and then we can use avenues to draw other people out that might be intimidated by that, but still have something valuable to offer given the right opportunity. So how would you handle that? Another problem might be participants get nervous and are anxious to leave the meeting, right? How can we prevent it? Well, we can conclude the meeting on time. A good meeting usually finishes early, right? Maybe don't set a closing time, but I don't prefer that, but it's an option. Schedule meetings when people are free from pressure to do other things, right? When I schedule a meeting, I check the calendar invite, make sure they're available, and I try and avoid back-to-back meetings. That really pressures people if it's at all possible. And then, of course, run a productive meeting. That would involve developing an agenda, sharing it in advance, having the agenda time limits to it. I don't like to do new information at a meeting unless it's an emergency. If so, let's put it on the agenda for the next meeting. And then, of course, follow up at the next meeting with the taskers due out from the last. Another problem might be the participants refuse to participate. Well, here's some ways to prevent that. But pause and think to yourself, how else might I prevent it? Or how have I seen others handle it in good or bad ways, right? We learn from the good as well as the bad. And the last one would be the leader gets off the subject, right? It does happen. I do it myself. I love to tell a story. Sometimes that gets us off track. How do we handle that, right? I offer some things here, but pause it and think for yourself. Interesting. All right, so we're not going to do the exercise. That's for in class. I saved that for. I'm just going to move right into leading remote teams, which is something that we all, frankly, have experience with nowadays, right? And so culture is a shared set of beliefs or attitudes, standards, and purposes or behaviors, right? So it's really a summation of how people within an organization interact with each other and work together. It is a less tangible asset, but ultimately it describes that commitment or attitude that people bring to the office each day and the mindset that drives them to work. So with a strong company culture, employees, they're able to understand the expected outcomes and behaviors. So the takeaway is to keep in mind that it's people. systems and actions that have clear and direct impact on our culture, right? And so more importantly, it's something to be intentionally cultivated and nourished rather than left to chance. So here is what it looks like and why it is important. Good to pause and review. Now, in addition, there are 3 ways that managers can help. So we know our exacting standards and our commitment to providing an exceptional experience can make for long days. And there can be an increased need for balance of life and self-care, right? So this is coupled with our new work landscape in this global pandemic that we've been living through, and the compound stress, the anxiety, the depression, and accelerated burnout. So we want to really explore common mental well-being issues, and we want to make sure that we can provide our team with the tools to manage and cope, right? So we want to know the signs, promote the health, and encourage the use of the tools, right? There are 15 easy remote team building ideas listed here. And we want to help our team build relationships and combat loneliness while working in remote areas. And these are some tips to do that. I hope you enjoy. Pause, review those for your use. And so then I asked you, if we were in class, so we would have a discussion, what does an engaged employee look like, right? Employees really have 3 levels of engagement. There's active engagement, not engaged, or actively disengaged. I wonder which of you are like that right now. That's just a joke. I'm sure you're all engaged. But those are 3 aspects. So it's important to notice and note the difference between them so you'll know what actions to take, right? This person is passionate, committed, enthusiastic, right? They take positive action and are consistently striving to improve the organization's interests as well as their own skills, right? And they reach beyond the status quo, asking how they can contribute more fully each time through ideas, results, and productivity, right? Now, think of the not engaged as a yellow light, right? They aren't disengaged, but they also aren't engaged. And you'll notice a flat line level of engagement in emotional attachment, in willingness to seek or take more responsibility, that flat line. So usually their key driver is compensation, right? So the actively disengaged, they are then a red light. They are unhappy and spread their resentment negatively generally across the organization. You'll witness their active dislike of their job or their team or their employer to such a degree that work is left undone. Unfortunately, active disengagement often leads to open criticism of coworkers, to leaders and decisions that create a toxic work environment. And so knowing how risky anything other than actively engaged is, we want to make sure that we use the tools to help identify the problem areas and work collaboratively to assess and solve them and gauge productivity. Okay, that wraps it up for week 6. I will see you online. Thank you.